So our principal.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Morning.
Sir, good morning, sir. This is Dr. Ravi Maran, Principal, MM College of Engineering, sir. So we'll start the session, sir, now.
Yeah. So I've got a short
Sir, is
presentation.
it audible? Sir?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? All?
Yeah, sir.
Okay, fine. So I got
We'll
a
start
short
the proceedings, sir.
presentation, and I'm going to be sharing the presentation. And
So before that, just I take a few minutes to introduce yourself so that audience will
Yeah.
know about the speakers of today's session, sir. Yeah.
perfect.
So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. So my name is Dr. S. Ravi Maran, the Principal of MM College of Engineering. So today we are presenting the topic reflection on globalization, global pandemic, COVID-19 is a threat and an opportunity. It's going to be presented by Prabhu Nambiyappan, the Chief HR Officer of Ramco Group. So the entire session is hosted by Dr. M. Shanmugapriya, Head of Electronics and Communication Engineering, MM College of Engineering. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please type all your questions in the chat box so that it will be taken to the end of the presentation. So now without any further delay, now the session is handed over to Dr. M. Shanmugapriya, HOD of Electronics and Communication Engineering for hosting this webinar. Please, madam.
Good morning, sir. In this COVID-19 pandemic era, we, MM College of Engineering, conduct a webinar to enrich the faculty and students and other community to enrich their knowledge. I, Dr. M. Shanmugapriya, HOD of ECE, here conduct help to felicitate about this Google Meet. I first welcome our speaker, Mr. Prabhu Nambiyappan, Chief HR Officer, Ramco Cement. Welcome, sir. I also extend my invitation to our Secretary, Dr. M.A. Mohammed Nizam. Welcome, sir. I also invite our Principal, Dr. S. Ravi Maran, for this webinar. Finally, I invite all our faculty and other participants for today's session. Welcome you all. Now, I request our Secretary to share few words on this webinar. Please, sir.
Very good morning to one and all present here. I wholeheartedly thank our speaker, Mr. Prabhu Nambiyappan from Ramco, and I am very happy to see my dear students, friends, through the webinar today. The current COVID situation, as we all are experiencing, it has given a very, what we call, am I audible?
You are audible, sir.
Okay. The global pandemic COVID-19 has prompted an abrupt standstill. The COVID contagion has contaminated farthest corners of the planet, posing a daunting challenge to medical systems around the world. And now, to slow the speed of the virus, people have been forced to stay in their confinement homes and dwellings. Now we all are at our home. We are working from home. We are learning from home. Everything is happening only from home. While monitoring the spreading of the deadly coronavirus closely, awareness has been created among the common people. Every government from all over nearly 190 countries now in the lockdown position. Students, teachers, parents, elderly people, many, learned or farmers in every sector, they are at home. But as told by the principal, this corona situation, every government is telling that we need to live with this virus. So what is that we are going to do? What is our plan? We cannot be idle at home. We have to enrich ourselves. We have to, adopt what is happening now, and we have to overcome that. So for that, what is that we have done? Everywhere, what we can see from the media, everywhere, so much of confusion and fear for the common public the common people. Somebody in a family has got some medical problem, they are not able to go to the hospital. So every of our activity are being hurdled. So we are not able to come out of that. But still, it is what we call the blessings of the Almighty. We cannot tell that this is a curse. Whatever has happened, as a human, as a boy or as a girl, there is a blessing that we have been, given to this earth. So it is our, ability to make this corona situation as a positive way. How are we going to handle this one? So now we have to double the speed of what we have done earlier. நம்ம காலேஜ்ல எப்படி நம்ம படிச்சோமோ, காலேஜ்ல எப்படி கல்வி கற்கணுங்கிறதுக்காக ஒரு எண்ணத்தோட பெற்றோர்கள் நம்மளை கல்லூரிக்கு அனுப்புனாங்களோ, நம்ம நினைச்சிட்டு இருக்கலாம் ஒரு 10 நாள் ஓகே நம்ம வீட்டுல இருக்கிறோம், ஒரு
I think we lost you. I can't hear you, sir. Yeah,
Sir,
oh,
in between,
somebody has
muted you.
sir, your voice is
no
your voice is not audible.
எவ்வளவு நேரமா நான் பேசுறது கேட்கல, எனக்கு தெரியலையே. How many? Just now?
No, sir, last 1 minute.
1
sir.
minute. When you
Oh,
started
okay.
talking about number
Okay. Now the situation, the current situation, அதை நம்ம ஒரு நெகட்டிவா எடுத்தோம் அப்படின்னா we will be depressed and we will be confused. Hello? Can you mute except the speaker, please mute everyone. The moderator, please mute all the audience except the speaker. Thank you. அப்ப இப்ப இருக்கக்கூடிய சூழ்நிலையில இந்த கரண்ட் சிச்சுவேஷன் ப்ராப்ளம்னு இல்லாம how are we going to take this as an opportunity? நம்ம வீட்டுல இருக்கோம், ரொம்ப கஷ்டமா இருக்கும். எப்போ நம்ம காலேஜுக்கு வர போறோம், இல்ல எப்போ நம்ம வேலையை பார்க்க போறோம். இப்ப நானும் வெளியில போய் வேலை செஞ்சு கிட்டத்தட்ட 3 மாசம் ஆயிடுச்சு, காலேஜுக்கு 3 months ஆயிடுச்சு. சோ இதுதான் நடக்க போதா, எப்போதான் நம்ம வர போறோம்? சோ இந்த ஃபியர்ல இருந்து வெளியே வரணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லும் போது ஃபர்ஸ்ட் we have to mentally we have to be prepared. செகண்ட் ஒரு ஃபியர்னஸ் இருந்தா கூட அதை நம்ம ஒரு கவர்மெண்டோ இல்ல எக்ஸ்பர்ட்டோ என்ன சொல்றாங்களோ அதை கடைபிடிக்கணும். இன்னைக்கு ஒரு ரெஸ்பான்சிபிலிட்டி ஆஸ் எ இந்தியன் நம்ம எல்லாருக்குமே இருக்கு. என்னது, நம்மளுடைய இந்தியால இது ஒரு பெரிய பாதிப்பை ஏற்படுத்திக்கிட்டு இருக்குது இப்போ. ஸோ சோசியல் டிஸ்டன்சிங் தவிர இதுக்கு அடுத்த ஒரு ரெமெடி இல்லை அப்படிங்கிறத நம்ம கிட்டத்தட்ட ஒரு 3 மாசமா பாக்குறோம். மெனி டெத்ஸ் ஹேவ் ஹேப்பன், மெனி ஹாஸ்பிட்டல்ஸ் ஆர் ஃபுல்லி லோடட் வித் ஒன்லி எமர்ஜென்சி வார்ட்ஸ். அப்ப நிறைய பேர் அவங்களுடைய அன்றாட பிரச்சனையில கூட போய் கிளினிக்கு போக முடியாத ஒரு சூழ்நிலை. ஏஜ்டு பேரண்ட்ஸ் வீட்டில் இருக்காங்க. ஸோ வி ஹாவ் த ரெஸ்பான்சிபிலிட்டி ஆஸ் அ சிட்டிசன், ஆஸ் அ ட்ரூ சிட்டிசன், ஆஸ் அ ஸ்டூடெண்ட், ஆஸ் அ பேரண்ட், ஆஸ் அ டீச்சர், நம்ம குடும்பத்தையும் பாதுகாக்கணும், நம்ம சொசைட்டியும் பாதுகாக்கணும், நம்ம கண்ட்ரியை பாதுகாக்கணும். அப்படின்னு சொல்லும் போது what is the government is insisting, we have to adhere to that and we have to do it. This is number 1. Number 2, இப்போ இந்த ப்ராப்ளம் how do we make it as an opportunity? Whatever you have done while you are coming, you have come for the college, எவ்வளவு எஃபோர்ட் போட்டு நம்ம படிச்சோமோ அதுல 2 மடங்கு நீங்க எஃபோர்ட் போட்டு உங்களை என்ரிச் பண்ணணும். ஸோ அதுக்கு என்ன பண்ணணும் அப்படிங்கிறதுக்கு தான் ஃபியூ டிப்ஸ் என்னென்ன பண்ணலாம் அப்படிங்கிறது தான் now we are bringing experts. இப்போ நம்ம டீச்சர் சொல்லலாம், நம்ம பிரின்சிபல் சொல்லலாம், நான் சொல்லலாம். இருந்தாலும் மற்றவங்க சொல்லும் போது அவங்க என்ன சொல்றாங்க, அவங்களுடைய எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் என்ன அப்படிங்கிற கேதர் பண்றதுக்காக தான் we have now brought our dear friend Mr. Prabhu Nambiappan from Ramco. I once again feel it very much elated to see my dear student friends and my friend brother Prabhu Nambiappan. I give this platform to brother Prabhu Nambiappan to take over. Thank you so much. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, correspondent, and thank you, principal, and a very good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Sir, 1 minute, sir.
Yeah.
Sir?
Yeah, tell
Sir?
me.
Hello?
Yeah,
Sir, take another 1 minute time to introduce yourself, sir. Please, sir.
yeah, sure.
Madam, please, guest to the audience.
Good morning, everybody. I now introduce the speaker, Mr. Prabhu Nepal. Prabhu Nambiappan is currently heading the human resource function for Ramco Group as Senior Vice President. Ramco Group is a $2 billion company which is focusing on textiles, building materials, and IT systems. He is graduate in engineering from College of Engineering, Guindy, and a postgraduate from XLRI Jamshedpur. He has been heading the human resource function as a CHRO since 1997. He has been involved in 3 greenfield startups in Chennai, French auto component company Value JV with ARN Group, UK insurance company Royal and Son Alliance JV with Sundaram Finance and Nokia Telecom Park. He went on to work for Nokia in its headquarters in Helsinki, Finland in a global role for a couple of years. He is a sitting member of Confederation of Indian Industry, Southern Region and HR Subcommittee. Now I request our speakers to throw light on reflections on globalization. Global pandemic COVID-19 is a threat and opportunity. Please, sir.
Okay, thank you. Can you see my screen now? The slide, good, better, best?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
great. So can you please, all of you mute your speakers and microphones so that, sorry, not your speakers, but your microphones, please. All right. So good morning to all of you again. Now, let me first, start with the context of what we are trying to do here. We do have a very alarming situation post COVID-19. I think the news, be it social media, be it mainstream media, we've been flooded with very alarming news about how there is job loss, how there is economy running dry, how there are people without money, without food, migrant labor walking long distances. So we've been fed with a lot of negative news about COVID-19 and post-COVID-19. We're still not flattened the curve, so for which we have a long way to go. I think as per current trends, I think we will start probably flattening the curve mid-July. So which means, we're going to be hearing a lot more negative news and people staying at home, looking around all this despondency. There is a very real danger of getting depressed. Now, I thought, we should, while I'm not going to be, sugarcoating and saying that there's nothing wrong, the world is good, I'm not going to say that. But I'm going to show you a perspective of how to be positive in this very gloomy, negative situation. Because that is very important. Unless we are going to be absolutely positive about this, we are not going to be coming over what we see as a global pandemic in the next few months. Now, in 1918, I think we had the first global pandemic, the Spanish flu. And that time, the world was not as connected. Today, we are a global village. But those days, it was not as connected. So, yes, it was causing damage across the world, but probably in pockets. So after US had subsided, it came to India through the British soldiers. After India subsided, it went to another part of the world. So it was gradually going. But today, with COVID-19, the entire global economy has been hit at the same time across the world. So that gives us a very different perspective in terms of what's happening. Now, what I'm going to be doing in the next 20, 25 slides and probably for 1 hour is trace the way globalization has moved across the world through 12 significant events. COVID is one very significant event. This is a threat, but again, it is an opportunity. Before this, there were 12 such significant global events which kind of sustained and pushed forward globalization in a very big way across the world. Now, before I go there, I want to kind of, I think the person who introduced me has already spoken to you about my background. I want to just touch a few words about that because that is very important in terms of building the context. Because how am I, worthy to talk about globalization? Do I have the relevant experience to talk about globalization? Is definitely a question in many of your minds. So let me give you the context. See, when I studied, I did my schooling in college in Guindy Engineering College, but my schooling was in Dindigul. For me, that time, to become part of the global scenario, I had to keep moving. So from Dindigul, after my plus two, I moved to Chennai and I did my engineering there in College of Engineering Guindy. Then I went to Jamshedpur in Bihar to kind of understand and management practices and got my MBA degree from there in Jamshedpur. Then I worked in Calcutta, Lucknow, Hyderabad. I've also worked overseas. So for me, my universe expanded as I moved physically from one place to another place. But I think the situation has changed today. When I say today, in the last few years, you do not have to move out of your current physical space to get a feeling of what is happening globally. I think the social media, mainstream media, the internet facility has made the world really small. And today, you sitting in Trichy or somewhere around Trichy, I'm able to talk to you. Now, this is very significant. And this is again due to the internet, etc. So, you have an opportunity to be part of the global scenario sitting wherever you are. You don't have to move out of your space, because many times when I go around, I get this feeling and get this conversation going where people say that, so, but I've got limited opportunities. No, the opportunities are not limited in the current context, because today you can make as much waves sitting wherever you are without really moving physically out. Okay. Now that is one very, very important thing I want to state it, because this is my life journey. I moved from Dindigul all over. Today, I am sitting in one place and I'm able to go all over. Next week, I'm in a CII webinar for on wages, salaries, and in this COVID situation. I'm going to be speaking for the Andhra state chapter of CII. So then week after, I'm in a Delhi program. So all sitting here in Chennai. So that the world has completely changed. So please get the feeling that being here in Trichy or Chennai or you wherever Rajapalayam, you're not part of the global scenario. You are part of the global scenario, whether you like it or not. And this COVID-19 has made sure that we all understand that. And I think that is the context I want to put forward to you, that COVID-19, which started in Wuhan, today has affected every small village all over the world. So you cannot be secluded away, because world is coming to you. Even if you don't go out there, the world is coming to you. So it all calls for us to keep our eyes open, keep our ears open, and keep our mouth open so that we can start interacting with others across the world. So with this context, now let's move on to see what I'm going to be talking about. Like I said, I'm going to be sharing with you 12 global events which sustained and moved forward globalization. Before we get there, I think it's important that first we see what the textbook calls globalization. Now, this is a very well agreed definition of globalization, which is accepted across the world. According to this definition, globalization is a process of interaction, integration among people, companies, and governments in a process driven by international trade and investment. This is broadly the definition of globalization. And having worked, I've worked in Helsinki, the Nokia headquarters, for almost 2 years. I held a global position looking after Middle East, Africa, and the Southeast Asia Pacific. So I can tell you there is no one playbook for becoming global. You know, if you want to become a very efficient manufacturer, there is a PDCA cycle: plan, do, check, act. If you want to become a customer-focused organization, there is a playbook. But if you want to become globalization, you want to become global, there is no one playbook saying that, okay, take this playbook and let's go out and become global. No, it doesn't work that way. If you see many events, I'm talking about 12, but there are many multiple other smaller significant events, which global leaders and government leaders have kind of put their, chart together and try to go on that wave. That is how globalization happened. It's not that one, it's not that, you have one kind of playbook and you go out and start doing it. Now, let us look at these 12 events, which kind of changed the whole scenario. The first event is immigration. Now, what happened was almost, according to World Economic Forum, today there are 300 million immigrants across the world. What are these immigrants? We in fact, last month we were discussing migrant labor, people from Uttar Pradesh or people from, Sikkim or Bhutan or, Assam coming to Chennai or whichever part of India, moving here, there for work, setting up families in a different country, in a different culture, in a different language environment. Now, this has been happening from the 17th century onwards, when people moved either to kind of for trade or to capture countries, to enslave countries. But, it started 17th century, and this was one significant driver for globalization, because of which, in fact, today, United States of America is a country of immigrants. The entire country, apart from the Native American Indians, is made up of immigrants. Now, this country grew up because of immigrants. Now, similarly, there are immigrants everywhere. Every country, there are migrant population for short term, long term. But, expats make up a big sizable chunk of population in any growing economy. They go to Gulf, there is, whether it's Dubai, Saudi Arabia, there is a huge chunk of global population, expatriate population. Now, this is the scenario across the world. So first event is immigration. Now let us go to the next event. We did have universities even before Oxford, etc. But I'm going to be taking only from Oxford onwards because this changed the dynamics of globalization. Earlier, people came for knowledge sake, but today people move to universities so that they can get a degree and get a job in the country where they're studying. So the dynamics of going for a foreign degree has changed. Like, for example, most of the Indians who move to America first go there to study, do their post-graduation in engineering, and then gradually, get a job there, get a green card, become a citizen, start a family, and become a full-fledged citizen of the United States of America. So global universities like Oxford University, like Harvard, Michigan, there are millions of universities across the world. Even in Europe, France has got some very good universities. UK has got some great universities. Now Singapore has got universities. So I know many people who moved from here, went studied there. Then Singapore has got a contract where if you study and get a degree there, you have to serve in Singapore for 5 years. So people, stay there, work there for 5 years. There are universities in Dubai, Manipal, BITS, Pilani, or even Harvard has got an outreach program based out of Dubai or Singapore. So I think global universities is a significant driver for globalization in the world as a second event. Okay, now this is continuing. It is not end of story. Now today we have apps like Coursera, where you can, sitting in Trichy, do any course, University of Edinburgh or wherever. My daughter, who just finished a class 12, is doing a course on philosophy offered by University of Birmingham, sitting in Chennai, through an app called Coursera. So there are free degree, certificate courses, 2 months, 3 months. There are paid courses as low as 3,000 to 4,000, but you can get a certificate in AI from University of Michigan. It is possible. So global universities have extended thanks to technology, but it is there. So again, how do we leverage it is in our hands. Now the third event is 1945, the World War II ended. So when World War II was happening, 1945 to 47, but the industry was focused on building military hardware, guns, tanks, aircrafts. So military hardware, so for which they built gigantic industrial complexes. Post-war, these gigantic industrial complexes had to be put to use. That is the next trigger for globalization. Then, companies started looking at mass producing consumer durables, fast moving consumer goods. So cigarettes, newspaper, Coca-Cola, chewing gum. So these all were becoming, large scale and easy to move, because in 1945, again, movement of goods was difficult. So if you can't move a car, because if you have to move a car, you have to, yeah.
Visible, sir. PPT is not visible to us.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and then come back again. I don't know what's happened, because you can hear me, right?
Yes, sir. Here we can hear, but now only just for 3 minutes the PPT is not visible.
Is it visible now?
No, sir. No, sir. It's not visible.
Okay, 1 minute.
Yeah, it's now visible. Yeah, it's visible now, sir.
Yes, sir.
இப்பதான் note பண்ணேன்.
வருது sir.
Okay. You can
Thank
see
you,
me.
sir.
See
It's
the
audible.
presentation.
It's visible now, sir.
Okay, fine. Great. So what is happening is World War II created, in terms of shipping a car, it is not possible, because you need to, now you send CKDs, completely knock down parts of car, but those days you couldn't do it. The technology was not yet there. So what you have to do is make a full car and send it. It was not possible, but still they were able to push small products, newspapers, Coca-Cola crates, chewing gum cartons, cigarette cartons. These are all shipped. So this was another big trigger which happened post the World War II, 1945 onwards. Now let's look at the third one, fourth event. The fourth event is the start of transistor. I don't know, when I was growing up, Ceylon radio was a big thing. So what was happening is, till that time, what was focused on products, now it was also focused on ideas, music, a knowledge being shared via the transistor, news broadcast. When Kennedy spoke in the US, we can hear him sitting in India or whichever part of the world. So transistor again created a huge push to globalization. Like I was saying, when I was growing up, Ceylon radio, KS Raja was a big thing. Everybody listened to Ceylon radio. Then Rupa Vahini, which was the equivalent of our Doordarshan. At least in some parts of the coastal area near Rameshwaram, etc., we were able to see Rupa Vahini. But what I'm trying to say is, this technology of transistor television was again pushing ideas, not just products, but ideas into a global spin. Now, many people across the world were able to hear different languages, were able to hear different knowledge being spoken about, different concepts being spoken about, different music being heard about and enjoyed. So this was again a big event in the 1960s. Now let us look at the next one. In the 1960s, we had management concepts. That was the time Peter Drucker, with his efficiency and effectiveness, was creating waves in the US, and that was being caught on because India, again, public sector predominantly, but there were some small private sector as well. But the entire companies are going towards being more effective, being more efficient. So management concept was moving globally. Philip Kotler was a marketing guru. He spoke about the 4 P's of marketing. So he was again globally becoming acknowledged for creating marketing spaces, creating customer mindsets across the world. We had Ram Charan, who spoke about people, till the time when Drucker and Kotler was there, was pushing concepts around efficiency and effectiveness. It was about manufacturing, machinery. It was about distribution, getting the products to the customer. When Ram Charan came, he spoke about people who were making the products, people who were pushing the product to the customer. So he said organizations should start focusing on people. So this happened again in the 1960s. C.K. Prahalad, another brilliant mind, he is from Coimbatore. He went on to become a significant mind in management concept globally. He was the one who spoke about bottom of the pyramid. He said, we are focusing at the top of the pyramid, which is a very small market. Go to the bottom of the pyramid. It's a huge market. So build products cheap but effective, cheap but durable. Then you can hit a very big market. So, Nirma soap, so was predominantly bottom of the pyramid focus. So they got sachets. So they didn't have the brand, etc. But they went full-fledged. They had a distribution network which was focused on the bottom of the pyramid. So every village, every town, every housewife, any part of the country was able to get a Nirma soap or Nirma washing powder. So that is the concept. So what is happening is the global concepts of these brilliant minds were again going global. So people were beginning to think alike in the companies, in the corporate sector. Next, what is happening is in the 1973, there is an organization called OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Now, this organization in 1973 put an embargo saying that all countries which have a tie-up with Israel, we will not export oil. So this created a huge panic across the world. So what happened? Till the time, General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, even the European car manufacturers like Mercedes-Benz and others, were making huge cars. The cars were almost half the size of a truck. There was no concept of a small car. So these cars were guzzling petrol. Now, during the 1973, the Japanese small country, they always believed in small cars, found an opportunity to make small cars, to make CKD, completely knocked down kits, so that they can go take the kits out to the US that time or Europe, put the car together and sell it. So that is the time, small cars became big and Japanese companies won big. And this was again because of a global event called 73. So what I'm trying to show you is so far that it was not that, companies, the Japanese car company said, okay, today I'm going to get a foothold in Europe and try to think in terms of how to do it. The oil shock of 1973 gave them a window. They said, okay, let's jump in. Let us go in and create a market for small cars, because now petrol prices are going up. Petrol is becoming difficult to get. Diesel is becoming difficult to get. So I can push my car. So that is how you leverage. So you, as a businessman or as an individual, have to always look around when there are such pandemic or global event. Can I make a meaning out of it? Can I create a space because of this shock, a shock or a global event, so that I can push my product, I can push my knowledge, push my idea, push my concept in. So that is how we need to keep looking at it. So this COVID-19 again is giving us an opportunity. Now let us look at the next event which created a big furore across the world. This was in 1974 when Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier. This was the boxing event. Till that time, people might have heard about Muhammad Ali, but this event was watched worldwide for the first time. 1 billion people watching it live. Okay, so this was a very, very big thing, because what is happening is sport. Till the time, India, we were very good in hockey. We played hockey. Everybody was talking hockey. Or we were, exposed to cricket. Everybody was picking cricket. But 74 changed it. People started watching different sports. I might become a boxer or may not be a boxer, but I was able to talk to my, cousin, my friend who lives in the US about, hey, did you see the match yesterday? So the conversation point on global events were becoming smaller. So, this is again a very, very big event when sports, becoming, global rather than becoming being part of a small group of people in different parts of the world. The next event is music and philanthropy. In 85, we had a global um, famine in South Africa. Africa was going through a huge shortage of food, poverty, famine, and people across the world came together to kind of contribute. So that is when global philanthropy came into play. Till that time, philanthropy was restricted to my country. Can I do something for my people? But here was an opportunity for people to support somebody sitting in Africa to get one meal. To can I contribute in some way so that a family in Africa can have a meal? So this was happening big way, and because of which, what is happening is music became global, philanthropy became global. The on the screen you see the four people band right on top. That is Queen. That person right in the front with a mustache with a short banyan is Freddie Mercury. He's Freddie Balsara, a Parsi from Mumbai who went to the UK and formed a band called Queen, and they went on to become a global band. Now, why I'm saying this is again breaking. See, all these global events of breaking boundaries, and was also giving an opportunity for branding products globally. Otherwise, what is happening is how do I brand my product globally? If I'm making bubble gum in Connecticut in the United States, and if I have to show to somebody sitting in Chennai, there was no opportunity for me to come to Chennai and put a advertisement in the newspaper. Here was meaningless, but here was an opportunity when Freddie Mercury and the Queen band was playing a performance in the stadium in London. I can put boarding, I can put hoardings, I can put boards saying that bubblegum, Wrigley's bubblegum. So the entire world was watching. When Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier was having the heavyweight boxing championship fight, I put a small scroll saying that Toyota small car. This was going across the world. Everybody is able to see it. It is becoming an aspiration. A small child watching it. Appa, what is Toyota car? Toyota car is a small car. So then, so everybody is becoming aware. So global awareness of products, services were becoming bigger, wider, thanks to such, sports and music and philanthropy. World was becoming smaller and smaller. Next, what is happening is till the time the world was divided into communism or capitalism. And India was following a quasi-communism or a quasi-capitalism called socialism. But what is happening is in 1989, the Berlin Wall, which was separating East Germany and the West Germany, was knocked down. So what has happened? The communism fell as a concept, as an economic concept. I'm not getting into the political game here. Communism is an economic concept that fell. So there was a new form of socialism everywhere. There was no purely capitalistic, there was no purely communist. Even China became a form of socialist country. United State Soviet Russia, United States of Soviet Russia became socialistic. Of course, USSR became Soviet Russia later because the other states fell apart. But what is happening is because of socialism, the market, we for the first time had one market across the world. There was a possibility to sell everything everywhere. You are not restricted by boundaries. You are not restricted by economic theories of different parts of the world. There is one theory which is socialism, and which means every affordable products for everybody. If I can afford a Wrigley's bubble gum, I should be able to get it whether I sit in Chennai, Trichy, or in Delhi, or in Dubai. So that was the kind of socialism which was happening across the world. So the world became one big market. The next significant event, the ninth event, is the Gulf War. Till the time, when we were growing up, Doordarshan started around 6 o'clock in the evening and will go until 10. And that's it. And this was the same across the world. TV was between 6 to 10. On probably weekends, probably it might start at 5 o'clock and go until 11 o'clock. But very short time, still TV was available. But in 1991, the Gulf War was telecast live 24/7. Because of the time zone difference, etc., what was happening is the world broke the time zone concept. Till the time when I was awake, I saw. When America was awake, America saw. But now what is happening is I can stay awake and watch it, what is happening in America in the morning. America can stay awake and watch what is happening in India, though it is morning for me. So world was breaking the time zone. This happened for the first time in 91. Again, CNN was the winner. But what was happening again is we had CNN, we had Al Jazeera, we had NDTV, a lot of players coming in. In India, again, privatization of Doordarshan was beginning to happen. The late 90s, of course. We were slow in the game, but we also caught up. Today, I think, you can watch TV any time of the day. Next big event was the GSM standard for mobile phones. My former colleague, Shiv Shivakumar, who's currently the head of strategy in Aditya Birla Group, used to say that India is one country which moved straight from mainframe computers to mobile phone computing, because we almost skipped the desktop revolution, which was happening across the world. In India, probably when the desktop was happening, not more than 1% or single digit percentage had desktops at home. But today, when I say today, I think it started in the 2000s, from 60%, 70%. Today, I think, almost everybody, our mobile phone reach is almost 90% odd. Everybody has got mobile phone. Everybody can afford a smartphone. Data packages have become low thanks to Jio and other companies. But today, there is nothing called I'm remote. Today, there is no dial-up service available. Everybody can access immediately on the phone what is happening across the world. I can get news alerts sitting in Chennai, or when I go to my village in Palani also, I can be in touch with the world thanks to GSM. Now, this was first developed in Finland, in Nokia, and I'm very happy to share that I spent 2 full years in Nokia headquarters at Helsinki. Amazing company. This is a company, another company, which again, kept on changing. I don't know how many of you know, it's a 100-year-old company. It started as a leather company. It used to initially make leather boots because that's a very cold. 6 months, it's dark. 6 months, it is light. You have sun almost 23 hours of the day for 6 months, and you have darkness for 23 hours of the day for 6 months. So that's the kind of country it is. So they had, huge requirement for boots. So they started with rubber boots and gradually kept changing, and they came to mobile phones. Even today, they may not be in the mobile phone space, but they are the biggest network solution providers. So all the big network structures you see for mobile phones are built by Nokia networks. Be it Vodafone, be it Airtel, be it any company, Jio, unless if it is fiber optic cable, if it is through the transmission towers, the network towers are offered by Nokia Network Company. So this company changed the landscape. There's a very interesting event which happened sometime in the 2005, 2007. I was, in my village, and we were doing some work in the farm, and we had a person who had come to work in the farm, and she had a son working in the Gulf, and so she had a phone with her. This was late 2000s, and she, got a call because of some emergency during one such time, in the daytime. So, for me, it was a big shock. Late 2000, somebody, a village near Palani, getting a call from Dubai. Just imagine. So that's the kind of shift which is happening. And I think, today, phones have really made the world a very small place. companies like me, I was in Manipal Academy 2 years back. They were running programs for HDFC Bank, where a customer sales engineer, when he's going to meet a high net worth customer, he can ask for a course, and he can do a 5-minute course on his mobile phone. And Manipal Academy was building that course. So he will go into his HDFC Academy, click a particular course saying that I'm meeting this high net worth individual. What are the products I should pitch? Should it be insurance product? Should it be savings products? What are the big ones? What are the small ones? He gets a refresher before he meets. So while he's waiting for the customer, he can see, get some ideas about his company products thanks to Manipal Academy. So this is really changing the way learning is happening, not just in corporate, but I think even in educational institutions going forward. In the 2000s, we had the internet era. I think this has completely made everybody, sit at home and do a lot of things. Today, in this pandemic, we're still able to sustain a lot of things is because of the internet era. And Google, PayPal, WhatsApp, Facebook, you name it, they're continuing to Twitter, push the boundaries and make sure that we don't feel we are not part of the global scene. We are part of the global scene, whether we like it or not. All we have to do is open our eyes, open our ears, open our mouth, and start connecting with the world. Building networks is what is needed. LinkedIn, you can, sitting in Trichy, create a global engineering network, across the world, of professors, of students, it's possible. The world has really, really become small. Now let us look at the 12th event, which is a very significant event, because till the time what is happening is products were being exported from one country to another country, being manufactured in one country. So sometimes there was a delay. Sometimes we had to pay a huge premium to get a certain product, but now that was completely broken up when China became the global manufacturing hub. This started in mid 70s, but then gathered steam in the 80s and 90s. Again, as a point of reference, in 1975, India, China, GDP was almost the same. Today, we are $3 trillion economy, and China is almost, 10 trillion or $13 trillion economy. So they are 5 times bigger than that. But in 1975, both the countries were the same. Okay, but this shifted. What happened was when they became global manufacturing hub, companies started thinking of getting their products quickly across the world. So that is how Nokia, when it put its factory in India, we were able to, within 2 years, able to export to almost 150 countries across the world. India was the hub for the dumb phone, not a smartphone. But we made millions of phones, and we were able to ship it to almost 150 countries. I remember in the second year of operations of the Chennai factory in Nokia, we got the award for the top exporting company in India. We were exporting to 150 countries from India. So Nokia moving out of India is a big loss to India. But what I'm trying to say is that the concept of global manufacturing hub was there because of China. China made it possible that yes, you can replicate a factory which is currently in Connecticut or New Jersey, in Wuhan province, or in Sriperumbudur. So that global mindset happened because of China. Now let us come to, now if this is happening, like I said, there is no playbook for becoming global. But then how do we become global? What are the choices in front of the companies? See, the choices in front of the companies always been like this. Should I operate few products in many countries or many products in few countries? So this dilemma will continue to be there. It depends on how deep the pocket is and how, because today, like for example, if you take well-being, yoga gurus are required across the world. Okay, so wellness, again, wellness products, there is a huge possibility for India going global, which we have not capitalized on. Unfortunately, we're talking about Nilavim, Kabasura Kudinir, and all of that. We need to back it up with research.
Sir, it's not audible, sir. Sorry, sir, it's not audible. We can't hear you, sir. No, sir, it's not audible, sir, still. Just 1 minute. Put the draft. Yes, sir, only presentation I can see, but no audibility, sir. Audible, Shomna, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, yeah,
Hello,
Now
sir.
you're audible,
Yes, sir.
sir.
It's audible, sir. Yes, sir. It's audible.
Okay, fine. I'm sorry.
But I can't view your presentation, sir.
Just 1 minute.
Yes, sir. I can view your presentation also.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know. Um, so coming back, so I was on this slide when I last left, right? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. Please continue, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So now, see, the choice before companies are in terms of should I have some number of products in many countries or big number of products in a small number of countries. So that's going to continue in terms of how companies operate. You can see here that these brands are available in more than 200 countries across the world. These brands are available in more than 160 countries. Another very interesting thing which is happening is that global sports franchises are happening, and the appeal post Muhammad Ali is happening across the world. So, be it baseball, be it F1 racing, be it basketball, football, soccer. I think there is a market. In West Bengal and Kerala, there is a huge market for soccer, world soccer. So this is happening across the world. For the first time, there was a global brand, was Levi's. Jeans caught the market. There is a backlash. Can people mute their microphones? Can somebody mute the microphone? I think somebody's microphone is on. Yeah.
Participants, please mute your mic. All moderators, please put the mic off.
Except team members, except the speaker, everybody mute, please. Everybody mute.
Yeah. Okay. So Levi's was the first brand, global brand, and from there we come to sports again. Now what is happening again? They were regional. When a country like India is big, if you can start replicating. No. I saw somebody coming in. Now, so we were able to replicate a World Cup cricket format in India called IPL. Similarly, same thing was happening in terms of World Soccer. Once in 4 years, became a yearly event in Europe. There's a European Cup. So such regional things were happening where people from across the world are coming in. So today we have in India, IPL teams where in a Mumbai Indians we have people from across the world. Chennai Super Kings, we have people across the world. So that's the kind of globalization which is happening even in the sports arena. There are events which are popular once in 4 years, but then it is seen across the world. Be it Olympics, be it soccer, it is seen across the world. Now I've spoken about things which have been done across the world, but can as a country we talk about what is that we have given to the world? This is a BBC list. These are some of the things which India has given the world. The concept of zero, the concept of yoga, flush toilet, snake and ladder game, shampoo, radio broadcasting. We saw in the 1960s transistor happened thanks to Japan, Sony. But the concept of radio broadcasting was because of one Indian gentleman called Jagdish Chandra Bose. Similarly, fiber optics, today Jio is able to put fiber cable across the world, across the country, thanks to Narendra Kapani. Your pen drive, the USB port, is again thanks to Ajay Bhatt, which is again a change of a whole lot of things. Even Apple today has got USB ports. Bollywood, of course, is a global phenomenon. Now, two things I want to share in terms of globalization. One is globalization helped us in terms of standardization. So, for example, when Nokia was putting up a phone for the keyboard, they were able to quickly take the QWERTY keyboard. Today, that is the standard. For typewriting, QWERTY keyboard is the keyboard you find on any phone. Similarly, the telegraph, Morse code, was the concept which is global. It's a global standard, one standard. So there's no confusion. I follow different mechanism, you follow different mechanism. All countries follow the same standard. Signages, for example, a red is a stop any part of the world. A green is proceed any part of the world. This again helped when people are moving. I told you in the beginning of the presentation, 300 million immigrants and more number of tourists across the world. So when you're going to any part of the world, it's the same signal, same signages across the world. So arrow marks, so these have all been standardized. Whichever country you go, you'll find this in the airports. This helps. But there are still, few areas where there are no standards. For example, Europe, still many countries follow left-hand drive. We are a right-hand drive country, but Europe, many countries do have a left-hand drive. In America, you can get possible to drive both, left or right. Electric plug, this is a nightmare when you're a traveler because, different countries have different plug points, which becomes a huge nightmare when you're traveling. Sizes for apparel and shoes, which is again very different for different countries. So but I'm told in the beginning of 2020, the Indian standards in terms of shoes and apparel is ready. Because of the pandemic, I think they've not launched it. Probably in 2021. Along with this, you will also have one size for India. Because right now, if you see a 34 size is a number 2 size in USA, is a number 5 size in Japan. So we will have one additional size called India size. Now let's come to COVID. Now COVID, I think, I'm going to give you some graphs more to, quantify what is happening because not to, I think you're getting a lot of messages here and there, but these are validated information and I'm not, I'm sharing it more to show the scale and size of what we are staring at. Now, if you see this is a figure end of April. I think, end of May, the numbers have almost, doubled now. Globally, I think we are much more than 4 lakh people have been infected. In India itself, I think, end of April, we were 16,000, but I know we have crossed 1 lakh end of May, the first week of June. And stimulus packages, again, I think, this was the package which was announced end of April, $24 billion. But I think subsequently Indian government spoke about a 1.7 lakh crore stimulus plan. But what I'm trying to show you is that every country is affected. Every country is going through a huge spend in terms of stimulating their economy. Every country is spending a huge amount of money in terms of their health spend because people are dying, people have to be taken care of. So the health spend has gone up significantly for almost all the countries across the world. Well, that is the message, that's the takeaway from this slide. Now, the International Monetary Fund is talking about, few countries which can bounce back to the 2019 level, that is India and China. These are the only 2 countries which, according to them, can go back to the 2019 levels. But still, there is a lot of water to be, flowing under the bridge. We need to wait and watch to see how things start flattening in India. But this is a very optimistic forecast by IMF. Now, again, some facts. What is happening is, Chinese economy declined by 6.8% in the last quarter. That is $250 billion gone in 1 quarter. Now, 150 countries have GDP of less than $250 billion per annum. So can you believe it? 150 countries' annual GDP was lost in China in 1 quarter. And the 45 days, this I'm talking about until April end, 45-day lockout has costed the world economy $12 trillion, which is equal to one China. China is around $13 trillion economy. So which means in 45 days, the world has lost one Chinese economy amount of money. Okay, so it is huge. 33% of the flights are flying. In India, nothing is flying apart from few cargo flights and few flights operated by the government. Then prices, which is again a very significant thing, oil prices are coming down. It went up to $20 per barrel, which is the lowest in 20 years, which is going to be the scene for the next few months at least before it kind of perks up again. Then we have sporting events are all being postponed. We have Olympics. Tokyo finally announced last month that it's pushing it off. Colleges, we're all hopeful in July. Country will take a call on colleges. So fingers crossed, but colleges are closed. Online teaching is catching up in a big way. We companies are also doing a lot of online webinars, classes, combined blended learning as we call it, where we do push in some data, some material through online, and then we have a face-to-face. So all these kind of experiments are happening in terms of teaching technology, teaching methodology. While China is the big thing, if you talk COVID, China seems to be a big thing, but there are, apart from China, 8 other very significant sub-themes which is happening in every country, each and every country. One is the China conspiracy theories. How did the virus spread only in Wuhan and not in other parts of China, but it went all over the world? Did China deliberately do it, etc., etc.? Conspiracy theories. Second is almost all countries have closed the borders. US did the first in January when they said they will stop flights to many countries, and gradually other countries followed. Oil prices is falling down, like I told you earlier, $20 almost. It is having implication for almost all the economy because apart from the Gulf and probably some South American countries, everybody imports oil. So oil prices going down will have implication for each and every country. The vaccine, now how long will it take? 1 year is the optimistic forecast, but who gets it first will be the winner, will have a significant role to play in the coming days. So vaccine development, again, as many countries are playing a big role in it. Governments are beginning to become stronger because people are clueless. Our chairman in the beginning of this webinar spoke about how we need to follow experts, how we need to follow government guidelines. So governments are becoming stronger world over. Whether it is India, whether it is US, whether it is Pakistan, whether it is China, everywhere stronger government controls are happening. The central banks, every country has got a central bank like the Reserve Bank of India. They are again going to be significant player when they push stimulus plans into the country. Should it be a demand-focused stimulus or should it be a supply-focused stimulus? So that is a question all countries are grappling with. The central bank will play a significant role in pushing the stimulus plan either in the demand side or in the supply chain. The future of global supply chain is going to be another big factor. US elections is happening in 2020. That is again going to be a very significant thing because US, all said and done, is the world leader. So we're going to be following a lot of things in terms of what happens in the US. Role of media, not to, like I said in the beginning, I think we are bombarded with messages by media, both social media on the internet in terms of phone and computer, and mainstream media in terms of magazines. But role of media is very significant. Fake news is again becoming a big threat across the world. So how do countries manage fake media is again a big threat, big sub-theme, which is affecting every country across the world. Now, in 2017, The Economist said that, the President of the United States plays two roles. One is the President of the United States and the second is the leader of the free world. And Mr. Trump is reluctant to play the second. Now, this position is hardened at the time. This was 2017, but by 2020 is very clear. He wants to put America first. He said America great again, and his focus is on predominantly America. He's pulled out of WHO. He's threatening UN. So he is moved out of NATO. So he's trying to put pressure on all global institutions because I think, like I said in the sub-themes are affecting countries across the world. Nationalism is one dominant sub-theme. So in this scenario, there is a question of who will step in to build consensus, because all said and done, 180 countries across the world. So there has to be somebody or somebody who has to play consensus. If it is not WHO, who? If it is not UN, who? If it is not USA, which country? So there is a underlying fight for dominance in many parts of the world. Like I said, the vaccine is going to be a big player in globalization. Until the vaccine appears, globalization is going to be in recession. So when I say globalization is in recession, yesterday I was reading the news, India's FDI has improved big time. Balance of payment has also improved big time. The balance of payment has improved because our imports have come down big time. And this is the scene everywhere. If the borders are closed, if there is no flights, if there is no ports open, how will imports happen? So globalization is going to be in a recession for some time to come. The country that gets the vaccine will be the first country to win it very big. I said China is becoming a villain, so to say, and countries will be split between those who believe in China and those who don't believe in China, and companies will follow suit. So there will be companies which will say that I will follow my country and say that, okay, China is the enemy, or I will say, no, it's a free world, I will also export to China. So that's going to happen in the next few months. So if this is kind of the scenario, what is that we can do? I think, I want to leave all of you with this message that I think while globalization is in a recession, what is not in a recession is about localization. We got to be aware globally, but we have to be vocal locally. And we have to start, leveraging our own in-house manufacturing capabilities and service capabilities so that we can, because India by itself is a huge market. We don't need imports, we don't need exports. If companies can focus, both service sector and the manufacturing sector can focus on India, small and medium or a big company, every village industry, cottage industry, small scale industry, farming, I think, India by itself is a huge market. So the mantra is we got to be vocal about local. And that is the message I want to leave with you all, that yes, we have had a big hit, but it is not all is done because we have a big market for us. We as a country by itself is a big market, so we can win provided we stay focused and we don't stay loose heart. And I think this is the time for all of us to see that how can I support my company, my college, in going global, in helping my students, in helping my employees, in helping my community. I think we need to start becoming vocal about local. So with that, I close my presentation. I think it's almost roughly around 1 hour, 10 minutes. Sorry for the break in between, but I'm open to questions now.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for a nice presentation. Hello?
Yeah, I'm there.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for a wonderful presentation on this COVID-19. So now we'll go ahead and take some questions from the audience so that, and then we'll wind up the session, sir. Audience, if you have any doubt or any clarification, please unmute your mic and ask your questions. Or you can type it in the chat box in your control panel.
Sir,
Participants,
good morning, sir.
please.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir, this is Mr. Saptia, faculty in MAM College, sir.
Yeah, please tell.
Sir, your lecture regarding the various events happened in the past really gave us positive energy, sir. And especially the event breaking of time zone was really amazing to hear, sir. And we could understand that there will be some positive happening even in this critical situation. And people in my age group also was really happy that we could remind our childhood, sir, that about that Nirma washing powder which you told, that advertisement we could able to recollect also. And one question I'm having, sir, according to you, how long time it will take to come back to a normal condition? Of course, we are going to live with the virus nearby. At least some 80% recovery, how long time it will take, sir, to come back to the normal condition?
Yeah. See, the first important thing I think is to flatten the curve. This is for India. We've still not flattened the curve. We still, the number of cases is increasing, and we hope to kind of start flattening the curve first week of July, and definitely by mid-July is the forecast by various bodies. Once that happens, I think already companies are working 33 for 50%. But we need to see today. I think what is important is that we follow certain basic norms. I think we can reduce chance of infection by almost 75%. What are the basic things? One is mask. Second is social distancing. If we kind of do these two things, 75% chance of getting the infection is reduced. So, I think, that is going to be the big challenge, how disciplined people are going to be. And once we flatten the curve, I see 3 months for us to rebound, because, it will not take more than 3 months. So if I'm saying, if it is July, mid-July, so August, September, October, I think we should start working up again.
Okay, sir. Thank you for your positive answer, sir. Sir, another one question, sir. Nowadays, we are getting many forward videos that even if we get positive corona for ourselves, if we do the homemade remedies and some hot water having frequently, we could recover soon within some 14 days, and we ourselves will make ourselves negative corona case. Is it true, sir?
See, I think, I have to first tell you one thing. I think best is to recently Tata Online Medical, they have come out with a statement saying that many of the cases, at least globally, it has been found that only 3% of the cases need hospitalization and ventilation, because the severest cases are only 3%. So 97% of the cases are not severe. So there is definitely no need to panic. We need to consult doctors. Now there are a lot of recently Savita Dental in Chennai, Savita Hospital in Chennai, and I think even Tata's have a mobile telemedicine company. They are willing to support you online till it becomes. They're saying all you need is a thermometer, an oximeter, and some basic medicine, and you can consult until your ventilation issues becoming critical. You don't have to go to the hospital, because people who really need it need to go there. So people with moderate symptoms going there, and because we have limited, to all said and done, any country will have limited number of ventilators. Ventilators are very expensive, and and very limited number of ventilators are available even in very developed countries. So that being the case, when only 3% of the population are people infected need ventilation, the other 7% people should be conscious about what can be done before they hit the hospital. I would say that please don't go by WhatsApp messages. Please go by the government, websites. I think the state government and central government are giving very good, guidelines. There are companies like Tata Telemedicine, which is again giving good guidelines and whatnot. I would ask you to refer to these and follow whatever happens.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. There are a couple of questions in the chat box. So one question from Kalpana Devi Ji. Sir, can you suggest any step to overcome this globalization effect?
Which effect?
Globalization effect.
Globalization. Okay, I think if your question is how do we leverage the globalization, I think there is definitely a possibility, because like I said, whatever happened in this particular COVID-19 is affecting all the countries the same way. the 9 sub-themes I showed you is the same for every country. So that being the case, I think, we don't, we have to be aware globally, but we have to act locally. Okay, and that is the only way. This is the biggest chance we've got to become globally self-sufficient, self-reliant. And if we catch the bus, I think we're going to be turning around India to become a very highly self-reliant country with very limited imports. You cannot operate in isolation anymore, because, like I said, it's become a global village. Thanks to internet, thanks to flights, and thanks to mobility, I think we will all be affected by what is happening globally. So we cannot overcome globalization, but we can leverage globalization. We can make positive use of globalization in this particular scenario and become locally strong by thinking globally.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Any other participants? Any queries from any participants, please? I think there is no question from the audience either. So
Fine.
I have one personal question.
Yeah.
The final question. Okay. What are the advices to our faculty group and the student group, sir?
Yeah. See, I think, you first of all need to, this is my personal thing, this is what we tell in the company as well. We say that, with the work from home, or, this blended learning in your case is going to be a reality. This is an opportunity. For example, TCS used to have only 75% of the work staff from office and 25% work from home. Now, looking at this scenario, they are planning to have 25% of the work staff in office and 75% work from home from 2025. That's the target. I think, so which is, going to be the scenario where, we need to adapt to this change, whether as a student or as a faculty, which calls for a lot of self-discipline and a lot of, mindset change in terms of saying that this is a new normal. The new normal is that, I will be self-disciplining me to say that I will do this course. I don't have to do my homework or assignment sitting in the class. I can do my homework or assignment sitting at home in my time. And, or, preparing for my lessons at home and delivering the lecture through the internet and other means of technology. So this is the reality. We can continue with life as is where is. Like I said, and this is not even manufacturing, except for manufacturing. I'm not saying this is going to completely change. A factory worker has to come to the factory to produce. But I can automate a lot of things. I can monitor a lot of things sitting, from work from home. So a lot of functions will go through transformation. A lot of companies and educational institutions will go through transformation. So it is for you to see how you leverage it. You need to first be clear that this is the new normal. So that means mindset change. 2, you need to become adept in terms of equipping yourself globally using global platforms. And like I said in the beginning, I think, today there are platforms available sitting wherever we are to access a library in whichever part of the world. Yesterday, I found that Umang, which is a central government app, is now giving a whole lot of books and reading material through Umang app. So I think, the government institutions have to start thinking digitally now. So there is, we in companies where in the last 5-10 years, think, going digital was a big concept, big mantra, because, we always felt, customer will not buy if it is not digital, if I don't go sell in person. But in the last 10 years, the corporate companies have moved towards digital world. I think, that is going to happen for students. That's going to happen for faculty, because I think we have started using phones and computers a lot more than what we newspapers. I don't think, in my layout, I live in Chennai in particular on the ECR. We've not been having newspapers for the last 45 days, 3 months now. There was a time when in the morning with a cup of coffee, without opening the newspaper, the day has not started. But today, 3 months, there's no newspaper. Life has moved on. I get all the news. It's not that I don't get the news. I get all the analysis. And how? Digitally. So I think, we need to start thinking digitally. And that's my advice to both the student group and the faculty group to start thinking digitally, because this is the new normal.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, now I call upon Professor Shobhana to give away the vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good afternoon, sir, and a pleasant good afternoon to all of you. This is Shobhana, Head of the Department, MBA, MAM College of Engineering. On behalf of the management, faculty and students of MAM College of Engineering, I take privilege in proposing the vote of thanks. First of all, my sincere gratitude to Mr. Prabhu Nambiappan, Chief HR Officer, Ramco Group, for his valuable inputs on COVID-19, a threat and an opportunity, reflections on globalization. Sir, your higher education at XLRI and your rich experience in various sectors abroad and within India speaks for itself. You have taken us through the transition of how the world has become global through the 12 global events in a highly commendable manner that the audience with diversified engineering backgrounds are able to understand it easily. Thank you so much, sir, for making it so simple. The 9 sub-themes regarding COVID-19 is really true. That is with mention of stronger governments, role of central banks, role of media is indeed the reality. And I really liked your mantra, sir. That is be vocal about local, as it is the one that can take you out of this pandemic effect. Sir, actually, I would like to add one more thing. That is, we all know that La Liga, the best football tournament, it happened 2 days back without audience, with virtual sound and hologram, wherein we had the match of Barcelona with Monaco, where we had Messi hitting 4 goals. So as you said, we know how to cope up with the pandemic also. We come out of it very well. So we will live with it, accepting it. Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful presentation. And now, my sincere thanks to Dr. M.A. Mohammed Nizam for having arranged such a great resource person to this webinar. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I thank Dr. S. Ravimaran, Principal, MAM College of Engineering, for having arranged this webinar effectively. Thank you, sir. My special thanks to Dr. Shanmugapriya, HOD ECE, for hosting this webinar in an effective manner. Thank you, ma'am. I thank all the technical team, along with Prakash sir from CDP, head CDP of MAMC behind, for making this webinar a reality. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants who made this webinar a great success. Thank you so much for the opportunity given. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Now over to you, ma'am.
So, okay, thank you. Thank you, madam. Thank you. So, thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation and presence in this wonderful webinar on this globalization effect. Thank you, sir. Thank you, one and all. So, on behalf of MAM College of Engineering, I extend my sincere thanks to Prabhu Nambiappan, sir, and also my sincere thanks to all the participants from our college and the participants from other colleges also. So, thank you, one and all. So, with this, we will wind up the session. And yes, sir, thank you. And we have another webinar on Wednesday. So, the title of the webinar is Becoming an Entrepreneur by another expert from HCL. The update, we will get it very soon. Thank you.
I request all the participants to fill the feedback form for the attendance purpose.